My name is Giorgio Nebuloni. I'm responsible for data center infrastructure research at IDC in Europe. And today, I'm going to talk to you about the impact that digital transformation has on your data center infrastructure. Now, we're going to do this in 3 steps. First thing is, we look back at what happened last year in Europe in data centers across the region. The second thing we'll do, unsurprisingly perhaps, is we'll look at today. We'll look at 2016 and the factors that will make you successful in operating and deploying data center capacity in the region. The last thing we'll do is we'll take out our crystal ball. You know, IDC is famous for the motto, analyze the future, so that's what we got to do. Take out the crystal ball and look forward, out into 2020 and beyond, and provide you with some ideas, some food for thoughts as to what happens to data center then and what you should think about now to be successful then. Right, so we got a lot of ground to cover. So let's get going. Are you guys ready? Yes? Yeah? All right, let's start by looking at the past. In the past 12 months, actually in 2015, we saw 3 things happening. The first thing was this nice-looking fella here. This guy is the Chief Digital Officer, and we'll talk a little bit about him later. So we'll park the nice-looking fella now. Second thing's happening, supply. Big changes affected the supply landscape last year. The third thing that happened were newspapers. Again, newspapers, where is Jan? Newspapers came back from the dead. Now, news, things that happened outside the IT world started to impact the way we operate our IT infrastructures today. Let's start with the supply. This is the view of the EMEA opportunity for server storage and network across the region. As you see, it's a sizable opportunity. It's around $28 billion spent every year. And now, what happened last year for the first time is that a big amount of new players started playing in this space. You got these guys coming from a storage flash perspective. You got these folks delivering infrastructure as a service, primarily. And then you got these guys, and some of them are here today as well, bringing up features and functionalities from the hardware into a software-defined layer. Now, all of these players, none of these players were actually playing out there 5 years ago, and really, none of these players was relevant 1 or 2 years ago in the market, in the Netherlands as well as in Europe. Right? So big changes, a lot of new options out there in the market. So what did the incumbents do? Right? What did the big established players do? Well, the incumbents, they had to reposition. IBM sold off the x86 business, HP split up, Veritas and Symantec split up. Dell and EMC are now going through merger, and they will vote on the merger in July. So the incumbents had to adapt to this new market situation, and they are still in the process of doing so. Right? So big changes in the IT landscape. The other thing that happened was related to news, right? Were things that apparently don't have anything to do with IT, right? Things like the European Data Protection Act. As you guys are aware, this has been signed off by the European Parliament a couple of months ago. Is now going through ratification in the countries. And in the next couple of years, if things go to plan, this will be ratified across countries. Now this is changing the way we think about capacity and we deploy our data center capacity. This also happened last year. Oil price taking a big dive. Now this year recovered a little bit, but I know personally of data center operators have made decisions about their location based on some trends on energy price like this, right? And that's the final, that's a big one, as exchange rate, right? I guess how many of you guys work with US multinational suppliers or partners? Hands up. Okay, I think around half of you guys. So a lot of these players had to adjust the way they did business last year because of the decline in currency and the decline in exchange rate. So that has an impact. So where did this leave us from a market perspective? Well, this, if we look at it from a US headquarter point of view, the spending in dollar terms. Well, it's a pretty bleak picture, isn't it? So EMEA wide, -2%, external storage down quite a bit. It's a pretty bleak picture. However, if you look at it from a Euro perspective, spending was actually very, very healthy last year. Spending was up double digits, strong, and even in storage there was some growth, right, in external storage, right? So the market was actually going through a transition, and there was a lot of demand coming through, and we see a lot of that still carrying over in 2017 as well. All right, so we look at the past, right? Now let's focus on the present. Let's focus on what's happening this year and on what we need to do this year to be successful in operating our data centers. The big factor that will shape your success, both as an integrator as well as an end user IT manager, this year is one thing. There's one factor only that will shape your success this year and next year. And it's the infamous word starting with the letter D, the D word, as I call it. Digital transformation. At IDC, we believe that by the end of next year, 2017, 2/3 of the top 2,000 companies in the world, the largest companies in the world, will have embraced digital at an executive suite level, which means the big bosses are going to be telling, or are already telling, the guys under them, make this work. I have to go digital. What it also means is that 1/3 of the largest companies in the world will not have managed to do that. They will be actually chasing. They will be actually trying to catch up. They will be actually in the process of being disrupted by those other guys. And these are the largest companies in the world. Now, if we look at smaller or mid-sized companies in Europe, particularly in countries like Italy or countries that are not very kind of keen to disrupt themselves, this percentage is going to be much higher. Right, so digital, but why are people struggling with this? Why are people struggling with digital transformation, right? Maybe raise hands here. Who has, as a customer or as a partner, had discussions around digital transformation over the past 6 months? Let's say, hands up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. That's a good, another 50% of the sample, IDC estimates here. So it's quite a lot actually, right? And how many of those projects have been successful or are kind of going to be successful in your opinion? Just a gut feel. Hands up. Oh, that's not good. And there is a reason why that's the case. Actually, several reasons. But the key ones are these 3. This is what we ask companies to report as the key hurdles to digital transformation. And there are 3 key aspects that we highlighted here. 2 have got to do with organizational processes and culture. 1 has got to do with the fact that many companies, perhaps including some of yours, are still coping with the costs and the operating expense of operating legacy systems from a software cost, people cost, and hardware cost perspective. So this is a big, heavy hammer that everybody is trying to drag along. So now, what is this digital transformation thing? Before we make the next step, we need to perhaps provide a definition, right? And IDC, as you can imagine, as an analyst house, has a definition for pretty much everything. So digital transformation, as we define it, is a continuous process reshaping the way organizations work internally as well as externally with their customers, right? The key point here, however, is that every digital transformation process, every project has to involve at least two of IDC's third platform pillars. Those being primarily cloud, big data analytics, mobile, and to some extent also social, right? Those things are always involved in digital transformation projects, right? So here's a definition, right? And you might think, okay, Giorgio, nice definition, analyst, cool, very, very abstract, right? Black and white, it's a lexicon, right? This is not real. This is not really happening. This is just marketing. Actually, this is happening, right? This is a case from the Netherlands, and perhaps some of you have heard about this. This is the so-called truck platooning challenge. Anybody heard about this here in the Netherlands? Wow. Everybody has, so I can skip the slide, perhaps. So this is a project, for those of you who haven't heard about this, that involved a think tank, TNO, as well as manufacturers of trucks across Europe, all the major guys, Iveco, Volvo, Mercedes-Benz, all of the big guys. They basically cooperated for a challenge that went out in April with trucks crossing the continent and reaching the Netherlands in this case. But those trucks were actually working in a semi-autonomous way, meaning that they could actually hook to each other and create a platoon driving through the highway. Now, what is interesting here? The interesting are two. One, according to TNO, which has been kind of sponsoring this project, there are around 10% savings in fuel only if those approaches are taken versus the traditional driving approach. Second, the POC stage, which is what's happening now, as well as the production stage, will require companies, and even a brand new set of companies, so-called platoon service providers, to actually analyze, absorb, and act on a big amount of data, but particularly a real-time amount of data. Right? So this is going to change the way those guys operate their IT and the systems, the information systems they need to have on the back to make it work. This is also changing the key performance indicators for IT guys. Right? Typically, we benchmarked IT folks on cost, maybe on the amount of staff, perhaps on the cost on the energy bill sometimes, if you were lucky. However, now, with these digital projects, what IT is being benchmarked on is speed, ability to deliver insight, ability to allow the business to experiment, and ability to allow the business to scale if those experiments succeed. So new KPIs, completely new KPIs. This is good, right? Is it good? Good, hands up. Was it bad? Hands up. It's good. Oh, for God's sake, it's good. We've been waiting for this for 20 years, right? We've been talking about the convergence of IT and business going hand in hand, like a married couple for 20 years, right? So now with this digital thing, we're kind of being forced to make this work. And it's a great thing, we believe. But there is a catch. There's always a catch. The catch is that as those IT departments move to focus on those new KPIs, they might jump over the IT infrastructure layer that lies underneath. They might think that they can get there without thinking about infrastructure at all, without caring about infrastructure at all. And this is a big risk from a supply perspective, clearly for integrators such as yourself that go out and deploy infrastructure, but it's also a risk for the customers, and some of the customers are here today, because sometimes, running very fast and trying to do things means running with scissors. Right? It means that some of these IT departments, and we have cases of the departments that we advise, have forgotten about the basics. They have forgotten that there is a privacy aspect to the data. They have forgotten that there is high availability for some workloads, and even some of the new workloads that need to be provided. They've been running around with scissors, and in some cases they've ended up like one of those Game of Thrones characters, right? You know, with a blade, you know, popping out of the chest. Right? It's, you know, as a customer, you don't want to be there. As a partner, you don't want to be there either, because it's not good for business if your customers end up this way, right? So what should be done to bring this to the next level, right? What should be done to make sure that digital and infrastructure come together? Well, the first thing is make sure that those KPIs are met. First KPI is speed. We mentioned some of this. On average, we estimate businesses of a certain size take around 50 days to deploy an application. This is European data, right? Now, clearly, in a day and age where consumer apps are refreshed, you know, every 2-3 days a week, this is not really viable, right? That's the first thing that you need to help your customers with, or as a customer, you need to fix. Second thing, insight. This is a very easy to read chart. It's a blueprint for where the insight needs to come from and what the process is to generate insight from those data, from those tracks, from those Internet of Things architectures, and so on and so forth, right? This needs to happen, and several times customers don't have a clue, or they don't have an idea of which data is valuable or can be valuable and which data is not. So this needs to, together with the system integrator and the vendor suppliers, this needs to be fixed. And then finally, and this is a chart that's been typical, because the problem hasn't been fully fixed yet. The operating expense portion of the total expenditure is still way too high. So we now spend around €4 for every dollar we spend on buying infrastructure. We spend 4 on operating that infrastructure. So this needs to change as well. Okay, now we got the basics, right? So where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? That's the question. Huh? Well, the first thing that needs to happen for you as IT stakeholders in your business, as well as for partners that help you integrate those systems, is make sure that the message that comes to the business is a message of integration. Which means that infrastructure, all the core infrastructure foundation points, including hyperconverged, flash systems, IoT, you name it, they need to be weaved into the discussion to achieve those KPIs. And the only way to weave those in, to make this understandable for the business, is to actually use the key junction point, which is the third platform. A lot of the business won't understand hyperconverged. They will not understand all flash. They will not understand flexible capacity. What they will understand is cloud as a very high-level concept. What they will understand is analytics or big data as an high-level concept. So you need to make sure that when you explain to your CEO, your board, these kind of projects, you weave all of these things together. That's the first key advice for me. The second is a little bit more practical, right? Let's get now to the nitty-gritty a little bit. And it's the idea of bringing back those case studies, those usage scenarios into the IT world. And how do you do that? You look at the workloads. So this is, again, survey data that we have. This is a research we done in April this year. We asked IT organizations in Europe about their IT workloads. And it's a bit difficult to read, but really, the dark blue bar, which is the one you have to focus on, is the percentage of companies that have that workload in their data center. 2 key messages here. The first message, there are 2 types of workloads. The traditional ones that everybody has, that sit at the bottom of this chart, but they don't allow people to differentiate too much. Everybody has some database. Everybody has email. Those workloads need to be dealt with properly in the correct way. Then you move up, and this is where digital starts to create hooks. Big data analytics, these are inbound workloads, and outbound workloads, reaching out into the Internet of Things, connecting to your customers with mobile apps, e-commerce websites, retail, marketing campaigns. All of these workloads have different demands, and also they can be mapped to a different type of platforms. So for you as customers and system integrators, what you need to be thinking about now is, what am I going to map where, and what makes sense to move where? And as you will see here, increasingly the discussion will involve on-premise systems as well as cloud capacity. This is the second key step. The third step is about recognizing that you cannot do this the way you used to do it 5 years ago. Cloud and traditional systems both need to come up, and they both need to evolve. And the reason is that by the end of next year, latest by the end of 2018, in Europe, more capacity from a server perspective will actually be shipped out off-premise. And when that happens, it means that you, as a data center operator, as a data center manager, need to make sure you have a linkage into those environments. That's the first thing that's changing. The second thing that's changing is that increasingly, IT on-premise, delivered in a traditional way, is going out of fashion. The light blue portion is the amount of spend in server and storage being delivered in a traditional format, so in a do-it-yourself format. The gray one is the amount that's going through converged and hyperconverged systems, and the dark blue is going into public cloud. So if you plan on using and developing your infrastructure in a traditional form, you will slowly start to encounter obstacles, and you will slowly start finding people and competitors that do it faster and do it differently. Right? Okay, this is the final pointers around the spending. A lot of this is around convergence. This market is the market that's bringing the value, and it's a market that's bringing the ability to actually be faster to market, and it's a market that's growing the fastest as well. So you need to think about this as an option. This, thinking about convergence, thinking about cloud, thinking about hybrid, thinking about digital, this is the only way you are going to make infrastructure the revenant in the digital discussion. Who's watched The Revenant here? Oh, that's good. I love that movie. Huh? Who liked The Revenant? Because it's always a divisive. Well, it's actually a lot of people liked it. I loved it personally, but I know if you are afraid of blood, that's not a good movie for you, is it? In any case, this is the only way we can make infrastructure the revenant and make it come back and remain relevant where it needs to be relevant for the business. All right, we talked about DiCaprio. Now, we talked about this year, we talked about last year. Now let's take the crystal ball and let's look out in the future, right? What are data centers looking like in 2020? What's going to change by then? Well, at IDC, we have a vision, as you can imagine. Today is a Cloud Vision event, so we also have a vision. And that vision involves innovation accelerators primarily. Innovation accelerators are disruptive technologies that build on top of the third platform and allow to drive a faster change toward digital. They include things like robotics, virtual reality, cognitive systems, 3D printing, IoT. The key point there is that these accelerators push digital transformation faster, first, and then secondly, they are actually much more vertical specific than the horizontal third platform pillars are. So in your segment, they might be very relevant, or some of them might be completely irrelevant. This is something that you need to think about. So at IDC, we think that these innovation accelerators are impacting the way business runs across all the stages, from the internal processes to the outward processes. So really following through with digital. And in order to understand how that happens, we actually identified at the beginning of this year 7 concrete scenarios for that. 7 concrete scenarios where innovation accelerators are changing the way we do things as consumer or as businesses. Now today we won't have the time, unfortunately, to go through all of those scenarios. I'm happy to talk to you if you have questions about some of the other ones. Today I'm going to focus on one. I'm going to focus on the scenario that has to do with data centers. Now, imagine you are an IT administrator, right? And several of you are probably, right? Imagine you have an application downtime. You imagine your ERP system, for example, goes down, right? What happens then? Business user tries to log in, no connection, picks up the phone, calls IT, calls you. ERP system down. What do? You also pick up the phone, and assuming this system is running outside at a service provider, you pick up the phone and call the managed service provider. Hey guys, ERP system is down. What do these guys do? They troubleshoot. They go through every possible option as to why that system might be down, which means going through anything that can be an Excel sheet with things to boxes to tick. It can be a more structured program, but it involves a lot of manual, a lot of emails, a lot of phone calls, a lot of errors, a lot of trials. Now, the BBC was an example. In the UK, they had a big downtime at the beginning of the year, so it was crazy. Consumers in the UK went crazy about that. But this can focus on any sort of downtime, right? And the amount of money that's lost for companies that operate mission critical is amazing, right? That's the way it worked last year. How is it going to work in 2020? And I'm going to go out on a limb here, right? Perhaps the system still goes down, right? The user calls you as IT manager, and you ring up your IT support supplier. However, on the other side of the phone, there won't be a person. There will not be a person. There will be a cognitive system with natural language interface that will listen to what you say, translate that into code, connecting to patterns of things happened in the past along those lines, and if it's a software problem, perhaps dispatch a patch, a fix, via software directly, without any human intervention. If it's a hardware problem, it might trigger a robot, for example, that moves out into the data center to the correct server rack cabinet and removes the faulty machine. Or perhaps in some cases, it might still trigger a human being, providing this guy or this girl with information in this virtual or augmented reality device as to tell him or her which cables need to be unplugged, which hardware is faulty, which hard disk is faulty. So a lot of innovation accelerators might play a role. Now, this is going out on a limb, right? This is me going out on a limb, right? And it might not happen in 2020. It might not happen in 2025. It might not happen in 2030. But I can assure you, it will happen. Something like this will happen. So what does this mean for you as IT managers, or what does this mean for you as system integrators? Well, it means a couple of things. The good news is that a lot of this will drive additional demand. It will drive need for skills to implement those systems on the back end. It will drive demand for server and storage and network capacity. It will drive demand for lower latency, because several of these things cannot work if you're working on a 1 gigabyte per second line. The bad news, however, is that you need to think about your supply chain strategically. You will need to make sure you partner or become one of those guys that have the control of the intelligence of what's happening in a data center. Because a lot of the other guys will remain at the borders. Right? And this means that you will have different sets of partners to work with as well. So you will typically still have the full stack guys, people like Nutanix, EMC, HPE, and so on and so forth, that provide the full stack. You will have component suppliers, you will have the third platform players, but you will also have a new breed of providers. They might be intersecting the other guys, but these guys will actually deliver intelligence around the data center. And you will need to partner with them, sometimes to compete with them, if you're a system integrator, but you need to think about this in any case, right? Imagine Splunk. I guess, who's familiar with Splunk? Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, good number. Imagine Splunk on steroids, a Splunk that makes decision for you, right? This is something that might happen. Okay, so we looked at the past, and now we're looking at the future, right? So this is the past. This is the amount of server and storage spend connected to those environments. And it's around 20% these days. The interesting thing is that a lot of this, as I was mentioning, they are intersected. A lot of these areas are intersecting with each other. Come 2019, 2020 we might even say if we are pessimistic, the overall impact will be more like this, right? So if you are a supplier, or if you are a user, you can think about, imagine that a lot of the data center capacity that you will be looking at in 2020 will be devoted to those new areas. All right, so now it's slowly time to come to conclusion, right? So we looked at the past, we looked at the present, and DiCaprio as well. We looked briefly out into the future and provide with some suggestions for the future. What does this mean for you as integrators and as IT providers internally? Well, it means three things. There are three key things that you should look at, right? The first thing you need to look at, and I'm reiterating now, is make sure that in all the discussions you have with the business folks, you weave the core foundational technologies deep into the digital discussion. You need to make sure you prove why an hyperconverged system is going to help. Why is an all-flash array going to help? Why is the software-defined storage going to help? This you need to do. The second thing is, as a supplier, you need to think about service providers and either generate revenue helping them or become yourself a service provider and generate a substantial amount of revenue by delivering services. I guess several of you already do that, but that's something that's unescapable. And as a user, you will need to increasingly look at the service capabilities from a cloud perspective of your suppliers. And the final aspect is embrace customization. One thing we didn't speak about today is the fact that a lot of this third platform is bringing custom apps, is bringing custom code, custom development. So that needs to happen here, but it can only happen if the resources down here are industrialized and provided in a very quick, very effective fashion. So you have to think about those two areas separately. So now with this, we went through the past and the future. I would like to close the formal part of my presentation and thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much. Back to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Giorgio. Can I kindly ask you to also stay here on stage? Because we're going to do some questions.
Yeah,
okay. In the middle, please.
Okay,
in the middle.
I'm not going to escape.
So we have two questions at the end of your presentations. Is everybody ready to answer them via the mobile phone? Jan,
yes.
Are you going to read out the first one,
Yes,
please?
I will. So you can vote on cloudvision.votes.mobi, as you know. And the question is, do you believe that digital will make changes to your infrastructure, reshape your infrastructure this year already? Do you believe that this evolution is already going to make changes to the way you build your infrastructure and so on?
So in other words, did I manage to convince you? I guess that's
Yeah. So we'll give you some time to vote. In the meanwhile, we give you some relaxed, chilling music.
Voting is going well.
Yeah, voting is going well.
I feel okay. I feel okay now. I feel okay now.
So it's 40 euro cents per vote.
And we shouldn't tell them that. We want to earn some money as well.
Okay, I think it's clear, right? The outcome. It's more than 3 out of 4 that believe that this digital transformation will already affect the way they look at deploying infrastructure.
What I'll do, I will jump into the public and ask somebody random what they voted.
Yeah, you're on a hot seat. You don't know that.
Yeah. Sir, can I ask you, what did you vote?
I didn't.
Oh, really?
You didn't.
You didn't? What did you vote?
Morning.
I voted no, because I work for ICT partners, you know. And, but we do a lot of things inside all the companies, so we see all kinds of different infrastructures, and so
You voted no. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your answer. And could you please tell me why didn't you vote?
She's not letting me go the hook.
Oh, okay. So we have to give maybe a little bit more time.
Very quickly now.
Okay. Okay. Good feedback. Thank you.
Who voted? Is somebody who voted yes? Maybe I would like to hear also a yes opinion somewhere.
Must be somebody. 75%. Over there.
So nobody wants to talk in public.
Nobody wants to talk.
Come on, courageous.
What did you vote?
I voted yes, because I'm a service provider. We provide cloud services for contact management software. So we do that already.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I'm thinking I'm the example of the presentation.
Yeah. So Giorgio, may I also ask you a question? Because something that really triggered me during your presentation was that you indicated that on average it takes 50 days to roll out a new application. Now, a way to accelerate that is, of course, to work with cloud providers. You know, like they make all the IT infrastructure invisible for you. But sometimes that's not possible because of data protection laws or privacy or security or whatever. Now, what do you believe is you know, like preventing these 50 days to shrink today? What is the biggest reason that it still takes 50 days if you want to do that on-premise?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there are several aspects. Because deploying an application is actually a pretty complex process, regardless of where you do it, right? Yeah. So I think the core aspect is the fact that when we look at the infrastructure part, there's a lot of work that's sort of non-coordinated there, right? So if you assume that you are a developer and you've tested your first version of your application, now you want to test it or deploy it. As you do that, you need to go through a process involving typically on the IT side several stakeholders. You might have the system guys, you have the network guys, you have the storage folks, you have CSO or security that needs also to make sure things work. So the process there is a first aspect that kind of slows things down. The other thing that slows things down is that these days everyone is virtualized, right? I think everybody here has virtualized a big portion of the data centers, right? So you would think that with virtual machines out there, you know, it's a click of a mouse, right, in theory. However, what's not been done yet is automate the way virtual machines are created and the additional resources on the storage and a network perspective are associated to those. So we still need a lot of people to click through and make sure the OS version is correct, make sure all those aspects are correct. And this is clearly a process that slows things down, for sure.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. Next question. Where's the machine? Oh yeah, there he is.
Oh, there he is.
Could you read about?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'll read it there. So, cognitive systems for data center maintenance. will be a reality by 2020. That's Star Wars. I love that, like you pick up the phone and there's a machine, like that understands what you're saying and correlating things to what is already done. And then automagically knows like, it's a bug in VMware. No, I shouldn't say that. It's a bug somewhere. And I'll apply a patch to it automatically just based on the patterns, on the intelligent cognitive artificial intelligence system. So you indicated it will happen.
Yeah, this is my thesis,
right?
My working thesis. That somebody will have a product that will make some of this happen by 2020.
So vote, please.
Yeah, you can vote. Do you think this is going to happen by 2020?
Feel free to disrespect me, right? So there's no. I'm actually quite interested in knowing what people think, because this is very
spectacular.
New stuff. Very new stuff for us as well, right? So.
And I will run upstairs already to see if I can find somebody with an answer.
I might use some of these to reshape my forecast as well, right? So very good analyst here.
Yeah. But as the votes are coming in, Giorgio, it looks like more than half believe this is going to happen by 2020. Okay. That's only 4 years from now, right?
It's very short. Yeah. It's a very short period. Yeah. But even I think once we have the good final result, I'm gonna maybe make an adjustment to the prediction.
Yes.
It's half-half.
Half-half. Yeah. There we go. Half-half. Wow.
Okay. Good outcome. Or not?
It's a fair fight. Okay. So who's going to invest in a startup doing these things today? So the other half, Okay. Should create a VC fund.
Can I ask you what you voted?
You can ask, but I didn't vote because my device couldn't find the app.
Oh, a technical problem.
Let's have artificial intelligence fix that.
I'm not an IT specialist, so I'm just here to listen to the story.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask you what you voted?
Yeah, I voted no, but I think it will happen, but not in 2020 yet. A little bit later.
Yes.
Okay.
It is, Giorgio, to be honest, I also found it very scary.
Yeah,
because
scary,
like Nutanix has bugs, like VMware has bugs, Microsoft has bugs. Where software is involved, there are hiccups that need to be addressed. And then, of course, the velocity of addressing them is important, because we have customers like eBay, for example. They have an app and they bring out new iterations daily. And we try to also increase the velocity of how we can figure out if something is not working perfectly, how to address that. But I know that the last 10, 15 years, there is such a structured change process in place to keep all the systems available, that a robot applying a patch automagically scares the heck out of me, to be honest.
I can imagine. I can imagine. No, I think it is a little bit scary. And these things, at the moment, we see them happening, particularly in vertical specific areas. You see things like the IBM cognitive systems or Google doing things. We will see what happens on the IT side. I think that's probably one of the most complex tasks to solve.
Yes.
By algorithm, right?
Yeah.
But we'll see. Maybe we can meet again in 5 years and see
who
was right and was wrong, right?
Yeah. Thank you so much for your nice presentation, Giorgio.
Thank you
for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, guys.